In today's video, we're going to go see what the steps are needed in order to set up a Raspberry Pi device and to set it up so where you can run the Venus OS operating system on it. So a lot of people comment and they say, in your videos, you always seem to prefer the Raspberry Pi over the Cerbo. And there's actually a good reason for that. This device here is about 4 times the power of a Cerbo GX. You have 4 cores, and the cores are also running at twice the speed. So, because setups like Node-RED and some of the other Venus OS large things are becoming more popular, we're finding that this is a very good alternative. It's significantly cheaper than a Cerbo or an Ecrano, and is able to run some of the advanced Venus OS features. Okay, so we're going to go over how everything is done, how it's set up. In our setup, we have a basic case, the Raspberry Pi 4B, 32 gigabyte micro SD card, and in order to read and write the micro SD card, we have this little adapter that can plug in via USB, and we can program it. So in our first step, we're going to go ahead and assemble the Raspberry Pi. These are very common. They make thousands of these. They're various different devices. For about $10-$20, you can get a basic little case. So we're going to take this, put it in here, install a micro SD, and sort of show you how it is to set it up. But before we put the micro SD, we'll show you how to load the Venus OS operating system. So let's go ahead and start assembling this, and then we'll show you how you can set up the operating system so that it can run off the micro SD card. First thing you want to do is just want to open up your Raspberry Pi 4B. Now, a word of caution, you must use the Raspberry Pi 4B. Do not use the Raspberry 5. They do not have official support for it yet. So for most people, this is the version you want. It has to be the Raspberry Pi 4B. As long as it's a 4B, there is an image for this. There are other Raspberry Pis that are slower, but we highly recommend this one as it has the Broadcom quad-core CPU that's running at a fairly high speed. Then we've got this basic case. Now, there's various cases out there. You can essentially just sort of take it off. This one actually includes little heat sinks that we can put on the CPU, and it comes with a little mini fan and also a little mini toolkit. So it's fairly easy to install. We're going to go ahead and put it in there. Follow the instructions that are included. Like I said, depending on the case that you choose with, they have like these very basic little one-page instructions. But for the most part, it's fairly easy. The thing can only go in one way. So we're going to put this in here. We'll put the fan on, and we'll put the little heat sinks on, and we'll show you how it looks like. So we took the middle and the top part off. We mounted it with the 4 screws. The Raspberry Pi 4B is in. Also attached the little rubber feet. So this will basically just sort of go here, and it just snaps into place. And yeah, like I said, very basic, but it does the job done. And then next, we're going to mount the fan onto here, and we'll tell you what pins to plug the red and black wire. Now this is optional. We do like it. It keeps the system a little cool, doesn't use a lot of power, so we'll put that in next. But before we do that, we're going to put on these little sticky heat sinks. Now, depending on the case, you may or may not get that, but it's very easy. Like the big one goes on here. The smaller one will go on the RAM. And then the 2 really tiny ones will go on, looks like the USB host controller, and looks like one's a supplemental IC. So 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll put those heat sinks on next, and then we'll put on the fan. Alright, so we got our heat sinks installed, and we also have our fan plugged in. So what we did was, if you can see, we have the red one plugged onto the 2nd pin on the top row, and the black wire connected to the 5th pin on the bottom row. And we'll include a reference to this. This is sort of how the Raspberry Pi 4B is. You've got a few other places that you can mount it on, but for this particular case, in order to get the clearance correct, red went up here, because we need the 5 volt, and black went there. Okay. Now, also, when we're mounting it, we're going to mount it this way. So the wires are facing down, and the empty is facing up. This is going to blow air onto the unit, which is the way we do it. Now, you could just easily flip it around, and that would extract air. But for our install, we're going to do it this way so that outside air is blown onto it, and it should blow right over the heat sinks, which is where the main CPU is. So we're going to mount the fan to the back side of this next. Okay, the fan is now mounted, which means we can go and close it in. So it should be fairly simple. It's just a press fit. Okay. So this is our sort of Raspberry Pi Venus OS device. Well, not quite yet, but structurally, this is ready to go. So next what we're going to do is load up the operating system on here, and we're going to show you how to do that. And then this will show you how to configure this, set up Wi-Fi and all this other good stuff. And that is going to be what we'll do next. Okay. So for this part, you're going to need a micro SD card. Pretty much any micro SD card works, but what's kind of readily available in the market from most computer stores is probably going to be a 32 gig. That works fine. 16 gig works fine. 8 gig works fine. But, you know, the 32 is the most common, so we usually buy this in a 5-pack, and you'll basically get this fresh off the pack. You'll need some way to read or write micro SD. Now, you may have a large reader. In that case, you'll use this adapter. For this little device, it has a micro SD port, so we can put that in there directly. And it has, you can plug in via both USB-C or USB-A. So we're just going to go ahead and use a USB-A port because that's what we have available. And we're going to plug it into our computer here. Well, actually, we'll insert the micro SD in it first, and then plug it to the side USB-A port. So we'll do that next. As you can see, it's there, inserted. And let's now go over the process to prepare this micro SD so that we can load the Venus OS operating system onto it. The first portion that you're going to actually do to set up your Raspberry Pi is to download the Raspberry Pi images. And these are available from Victron Energy, and we'll have a link to it on our description, so how you can download it. So for this one, we're actually going to get a large version. Now, what's the difference between large and the regular? The large includes like Node Red, which is one of the things that's gaining more and more popular. Now, we actually are not recommending running Node Red and stuff like that if you have a cerbo, unless you have a Carano or possibly a cerbo, a Carano or a Raspberry Pi. You should probably stick with the regular. But in this case, for this demo, we're going to download this. So when you go to this link, just click on last modified. If it says 2021, click on it again. You want to have the latest version. So we're going to do this 3.66, which is the absolute latest stable non-beta. So we click on it and we're going to download it. Okay. So we'll just save it to one of your directory. In our case, I think we have it in our C drive. So we've already downloaded Venus OS 3.66 large. Okay, so that's already there. All right, so what do you have to do after you download this? The next thing is to download the Raspberry Pi software. So just go to raspberrypi.com/software, and you, depending on what operating system you're using, you want to use Raspberry Pi Imager. Okay. So we're using a Windows 11 machine to do this, and you can download it for Mac or Ubuntu Linux. But for that, you're going to have to reach out to Linux or Mac people that are a little more seasoned with that. For our video, we're just going to stick with the Windows. It's probably the most common in terms of our users. But anyway, once you have this installed, go ahead and install it. And then you want to do is go ahead and turn it on. And when you launch the software, you download the Pi Imager. This is basically what you're going to use to do it. So we're going to go choose device. In our case, it's a Raspberry Pi 4B, and we're going to choose operating system. Now, a Raspberry Pi has a lot of built-in operating systems, and it's going to try to want to use the ones they have. But we're not using any of these. We're going to go down and say we're going to use custom. Okay. So when it says use custom, we're just going to go in here and open up wherever we downloaded the Victron image. In that case, it's our C drive, Victron folder, and we're going to say this, the large. Okay. Then we're going to choose storage. In our case, we're going to say the 32 gigabyte SD card that's connected. We're going to choose that, and then we're going to do next. Now, before we hit next, just be aware, Windows is going to freak out because we're putting a Linux operating system and Linux file system on here, which is what
the Venus system's based off of, and Windows can't natively read that, so it's going to freak out. Oh, you got to format your SD card and all that other stuff. Don't worry about it. Just let it do its thing. Once it's done, it'll be ready for the Raspberry Pi. May not be ready for the for the may not be ready for Windows, but we're not using this for Windows, so the normal installer should work just fine. Anyway, once you verify everything is correct, just go ahead and hit next. And if you want to apply custom OS settings, we'll say no. And yes, it will erase everything on the microSD. And once that's done, just let it do its thing. And like I said, during this writing process, Windows may freak out. It's fine.
All right, so we finished writing it, and now our micro SD card is ready. And we're gonna take this micro SD card, put it into the Raspberry device, and then we'll start the whole Venus OS setup on it. But as far as this is concerned, the Venus OS is already on here. So let's take this micro SD and put it into our Raspberry Pi device and turn this into a Venus OS system. Just flipped it onto the back, took the micro SD card out of the reader, and just insert it into this thing. So this case makes it easily accessible. Also, it's got like little real mounting points. So at this point, this device is Venus OS ready. So let's apply some power to it, and we'll show you how it is. We'll show you how it is to set up, and you'll be able to see that Victron Connect recognizes this device as a Venus compatible thing, and it's ready. Also, since it has USB things, our drives plug in directly. And we'll also go over some of the adapters and stuff that you may need if you want to connect like a inverter and a solar charger so that it works with your little device. Okay, so we got power and we got this. This is running. So the Bluetooth should be enabled by default. As you can see, it's reading the micro SD card. So this thing should be ready for us to configure on Victron Connect. So we'll do that next.
Okay, so we were able to log in and we see the system running. The system is here. We can sort of see it. This is connected via Raspberry Pi. Now, you'll notice in the URL it says GUI 1, GUI 2. You can switch between those two and also set up a default. So if you go to GUI 2, we can see the updated GUI. And in this updated GUI, we see, this is what the modern GUI is. And here we go.
Okay. So this is sort of part 2, our, Raspberry Pi, display and, setting it up so that you can use Raspberry Pi. Okay, so as you're all familiar, CerboJX is quite common. And another thing that's very common is people like running sort of this display. They have it it's called the Venus Touch, and it's wall mountable, and it comes in 5, and it comes in 7 inches. So normally what you would do is you have like this cable, and it's about 5 to 6 feet. And normally people will put the servo next to their batteries, and then they'll sort of run this cable. But inevitably you will run a situation where this is not long enough, and you'll have to get like these HDMI extensions, and that can usually cause a problem. The other thing is this is quite expensive, probably well over $300. And most people sometimes can't really run long enough, because once you start extending USB cables, they no longer can carry the signal reliably. So this becomes a problem, because we want our servo device, we want a touchscreen that we can interact with it, have interactive, but because it's wired, it becomes sort of a pain. So is there any way, wouldn't it be nice if we had something like this that we could just wirelessly mount, didn't have to worry about wires, but still had this nice, GX interface? So to solve that problem, we're going to use like a thing like a Android tablet. This gives us a big screen. You can get up to 12-inch screens, and if we're able to basically have this thing do the same functions as this, but have it done wirelessly, it would be fantastic. In fact, this and this is usually about the same price as just this. So let's see what we need to do in order for our tablet to act like a Venus Touch device. And if we can have it wirelessly, which means we can sort of mount our tablet wherever, run a small USB power cable to it, and then we don't have to have any wires going from this directly to this, because you can communicate wirelessly. So we'll show you how to sort of do that. So we're using a Samsung Galaxy A9 tablet. I think this is the A9 Plus, and they're available for around $100 or so. It's a very common tablet. And in order to do sort of this, upgrade, you're going to need two things. One, you're going to have a compatible Android tablet, and two, you're going to have a phone that can show a QR code. And we'll show you how to get this QR code. It's very simple. But the process to this is fairly simple. Depending on the device that you have, you are going to open it up. You're going to go to the settings for that device. You're going to search for factory reset. And once you do the factory data reset, it's going to clear anything that's on the tablet itself and bring it back to just bone stock settings. After we do the factory reset, it's going to delete everything, go to shutting down, and we want to basically clear anything that's on this tablet. We're waiting for the Android tablet to boot back up. In the meantime, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have our QR code open with a different phone. You're going to basically scan this QR code onto here. And once that is ready, you'll be able to install the Venix GX sort of touchscreen. So let's see how that works. So now this has appeared. So what you want to do is when you get to this screen where it says a welcome and all this stuff, you want to click on the welcome button 7 times. All right, so it says scan for QR code. And you basically want to set it up so that it can read the QR code. So actually, it looks like it uses the camera in the back. So let's get our QR code. Okay, and then it's going to ask for our Wi-Fi, and then we're going to connect to our Wi-Fi, set up our Wi-Fi settings, and let the install go forward. So let's do that. All right, so we got our Wi-Fi, and now it's downloading and installing the custom Venus OS Touch operating system. So this is basically going to be a dedicated Venus display after this process is done. So we're going to let it run for a few minutes, and then we're going to connect to the Raspberry Pi. And once that is done, we should have a wireless that you can mount anywhere. No need to run long cables, and a big screen that you can use anywhere. So that's going to be what we're going to do next. Okay, so it went ahead and rebooted, and it's sort of on this screen, and we're just going to let it do its thing. I tilted it upwards because for whatever reason the orientation it wanted to be upwards. So we'll just sort of let this process go, and then we'll kind of show you where we are. When we actually get to load the Venus OS is already loaded up and the GX display app is running. So once it sort of comes up, it's going to say set up your phone, even though this is not really phone. We're going to choose GX display and sort of go forward from there. It may or may not ask us to create a Samsung account. I don't think it will. But we'll just sort of keep going. And you can decide if you want. Probably don't really want to do that. And then I need to hit accept. And then you have to agree to the terms and, so on and so forth. All right. So now we're actually into the Venus sort of, Venus OS setup. So we're going to go ahead and select device. And this is 114 was the IP address of our little Raspberry Pi. So we'll go ahead and connect. And I think we'll just ignore for the pin for now. Hit accept. Now it's going to say that for a second. And it's loading. And that's just the GUI that we're running. Let's download it. Okay. And there we go. We have our Venus OS or, cerbo, Raspberry Pi style display set up here. We have, our Venus OS. I mean, we've already installed the SFK driver. I actually went ahead and upgraded this one to the latest 3.7 beta. Our driver is working, but officially support as of today is still 3.66. But yeah, you can mount this anywhere now, and all this is a display. There is no way to sort of get out of here if you turn it off or you turn it on. It's a mobile display, and you can mount this anywhere. There, it will communicate with the Raspberry. Now, the way this sort of works is in this install, both of these are connected to the same Wi-Fi. So most people now have Starlinks or they have some sort of Wi-Fi device or some sort of thing. So you want to make sure both the Raspberry Pi and the display are on the same device. And if you have it, you can set it up. There's also a lot of wall-mounted options for this, and we can show you how sort of that works. Okay, so let's talk about mounting the tablet, because it's nice, but most people like the fact that they can take their Venus OS touchscreen and mount it. But with this Android setup, that's not really possible. So we have a little wall mount kit, and it sort of looks like this. And we're just going to go over what it sort of entails on how to mount it. So this is sort of going to be your sort of wall mount piece. You're going to attach this directly to the wall in the place you want. You can also flush mount it, so if you don't want to use that, you can actually flush mount it. But it may be a little challenging with the charge cable. But anyway, if we actually see what this is all about, it sort of comes in this sort of two pieces. This is sort of the frame, so we can set that aside here. And then we have sort of these adjustable little sort of latches to put the tablet in. So we're going to take this, put it in here, attach a USB cord, and just kind of position it, sort of show you how it looks like all sort of put together. So let's take this tablet, put it in here, and let's see how it looks like. All right. So we went ahead and put the tablet in here. As you can see, it's just kind of held in together with these little things. And you may need, depending on what tablet you have, you may need a setter. But this particular wall mount was, they actually said it was designed to fit the, Galaxy A9 tablet. So this is a verified fit. So we're going to also have our cable. So we're going to attach our sort of charge cable here and run it to the back where it's got the little holes to have that come out. So we're going to take the tablet out, put this charge cable here, run it, and then let's see how it looks like then. Alright, so we were able to attach our power cable. We have it routed to the sort of back hole from here. Now we're not going to mount it, but we're just going to kind of show you how it sort of looks like all mounted. And this thing's got these two little tabs that'll tab into that. So let's actually put that there. Yeah, and then you can secure it with this sort of lock. So when the lock is placed, the entire mechanism is now, sort of set up. As you can see, this thing is ready to be mounted against the wall. Okay, so let's talk about mounting. So this is going to be fairly straightforward. Find a place in your RV or something relatively close to an electrical outlet, because you will need to power it in order to keep the tablet running. As long as you're not hitting any wires, use sort of a stud finder. Find a solid space and go ahead and attach your sort of mounting block for the tablet. So the first thing we're going to do, after secure it, we're going to mount our case onto here, secure it from the top with that screw, get this in position, and then we'll put our tablet in, and that will sort of be sort of a mounted tablet. So we'll do that next. Alright, so using a screwdriver, we're able to tighten the thing in the back, and this is mounted fairly sturdy. So now we can insert our tablet again, route our power exiting here. You may take it off depending on what tablet you have, but our power cord will come out here. We'll mount the tablet again, secure it, and once that's in place, we should be able to move to the next step. And just kind of give you an overview how everything is set up with with the two batteries and Victron inverter, and just kind of go over the basic system. So we routed our cable in, we got our cable out, and it sort of hanging down. So now we can actually go ahead and close it up. So this is going to allow us to charge it. So like I said, when you do your install, you want to kind of sort of keep it similar or get a long enough USB cable. So it just plugs into a standard power brick, but this should be enough for us to sort of complete our little install and kind of give you an overview how it looks like all buttoned up. Again, this is just the stand we chose. There's many stands out there. So just to kind of give you an idea how the whole thing sort of works when it's all set up. Okay, everybody, let's sort of go over what we have here. I guess we can say this is sort of simulated setup of how you would have it inside of a RV or any type of installation. So let's go over the components. We have two 315EX batteries that are connected in series with our data cables, and these are the official SFK data cables. As you can see, they connect directly to the Raspberry Pi, so no converter needed. We have a Multiplus 2 3024 volt inverter, and it is connected to the Raspberry Pi as well. It's using the MK3 USB connector. Normally when you have a cerbo, you connect this directly into the cerbo. So a standard cerbo, you would plug like your network wire straight into a port here. But when you're using a Raspberry Pi or something else that has a USB, you get what we call the USB 3 to MK3 to USB converter. Now, if you ever wanted to program your inverter, you need to buy this anyway. So most people already have this. But for people that are using the Raspberry Pi, since Raspberry Pi only has USB, we just need a small converter. Okay. If you have a solar charger, you will get what we call a VE direct to USB cable. It looks sort of like this, and it also has a USB, so it plugs straight into the Raspberry. Normally, you have what we call VE direct cables. So they have two of these ends that have white on them, and they normally plug in to the back of the cerbo. But the good thing is that Victron also sells VE direct to USB cables, so you can use that to sort of set up your system. Now, what you see here is basically what you would have like at the wherever you mount your batteries in your inverter. But the big issue happens is people then try to figure out how to mount their display, and the display is maybe a room or two away, and then they try to run this, and then they end up trying to run HDMI extensions and USB cables. It just causes too many problems. So we want to step away from that. We basically want to mount the inverter, the batteries in a nice place where they normally have, and then wirelessly we can communicate with our tablet, which is now running the Cerbo Venus interface. So this is basically the same thing you would have on a Touch 70, but in this case it's a much bigger screen, and we can go in and change settings, also do other stuff, and you have essentially the same exact settings and display as you would have on as if it was a Touch 70. All you'll need is you can mount this anywhere inside your RV, and you just need to run your USB lead to whatever sort of power you have. And if you ever need to open it, you can sort of open it. And this is, like I said, this is just one type of mount. They make various types of mounts, so it's not something that you have to stick to if you don't like this design or this too looks industrial. Like I said, they can make various mounts, and you can also make setting changes. If you did need to access the system, you can click here, hold for about 10 seconds or so, and then you get this sort of screen. So you can change the Wi-Fi settings, Android settings. You can decide if you want to keep the screen on automatically or not. You can update the clock, and basically, as long as this thing is set up to where it's running from the same type of network as the Raspberry Pi itself, it is basically going to be set up as a dedicated device. And as you can see, once set up, you have all the stuff that you'd normally have with the standard servo in here. And like I say, we can, in this case, we're running version, a 3.7 Venus OS large with Node Red and stuff like that. So the additional power that we get from this system can greatly greatly enhance the experience. And then the thing that's appealing is this with this costs less than this and this. And most people that we have talked to prefer that. They get additional power from the servo. They are able to mount their display screen wherever they need to, and still are perfectly capable of doing it. Now, if you are using tank monitoring and stuff like that that's in the servo, that may be a consideration. But if you're not using your Venus OS to do tank monitoring and you don't need all the I/O ports, in production we see just as much success with the Raspberry Pi as we do here. And like I said, the screens can be set to auto turn off. So if they do turn off, you can just tap it twice and they will turn on. And once they turn on, they'll go back and show you the screen. So that is a little bit how we have set it up. Hopefully, if you guys are considering, setting up a device, I think now with the mobile sort of tablet running Venus OS display has really opened up Venus OS to a lot more people, and the price point is there. In our experience, the added horsepower of the Raspberry Pi in conjunction with the remote monitoring tablet has made it sort of our default, is what we actually start recommending people to start doing. So, yeah, if you have any other questions, let us know. Oh, if you are wondering why are we running our two 12-volt batteries in series, if you haven't known, we can run our stuff in series. If you go to our Venus OS driver, we can go to our virtual battery. We can actually go to our configuration and set batteries up in series, and they stay in balance because they can balance each other. So what that basically does is if any one of these gets higher, it'll tell the one that's high, turn their heating pads on to match. So we're able to use our 12-volt batteries as effectively in series as most native batteries run in parallel. So 24-volt setups are no problem, and if you want to, you can watch some of the videos on our Cerbo GX page where we explain how this balance is done. Okay, if you have any other questions, just email us. We'll be more than happy to answer your questions and send you a response. Thank you.